Greetings, this is another Sprocket video, and before I show any things, let me make an announcement first. So you might or might not already know that I am a working man once again, except this time I even signed a contract, unlike the last two times. So now that I'm even legally a worker, I no longer have time to play Sprocket every day for 8 to 12 hours. So expect a little shift in the content I'm making, but the upload schedule stays the same. That's the announcement. Expect more gameplay videos, I guess. Alright, let's continue the video in Scrap Mechanic actually, because this is another case of me remaking a couple Scrap Mechanic tanks and then showcasing them in both games. So yeah, I know that the general theme of the video is large caliber guns, and that is still true, but I mean, all three of these are originally Scrap Mechanic tanks, so both games it is. Anyway, our first subject is the HGS 105-5. This hideous, ugly thing. Big ugly thing even. Yeah, you probably won't be surprised when I say this, but I made a complete redesign of this thing because there was practically nothing worth keeping in whatever this is. And you probably noticed that it's made of concrete. Well, back in the days, concrete was a medium weight material, and now it's a heavy weight material, so yeah, that's quite inconvenient. And yeah, this thing was just made to be large and hideous, I guess. And the worst thing about this, look at how this thing looks, and 108-3, and believe it or not, the 108-3 and this thing right here were made within a relatively similar time period. And like, this thing just looks so much better in every single way. I have no idea why I made this thing, but I mean, I'm glad Sprocket exists, and I had a chance to completely rethink this giant right here. So let's see the Sprocket version now. And here it would be, the HGS 105-5, but it's new and improved, at least visually. I mean, it's improved in every level, because visuals is everything that matters in tank design. Am I right? Anyway, so this thing right here, at a first glance, is basically an E100 with an Italian looking turret on top. And that's because that's basically what it is. Except the sides are removable, and if I remove them, they reveal a secret. And would you look at that? You probably don't know what I'm talking about, but let me bring up another tank of mine. The 105-8. Do you see the similarities between the two? I of course made this one first, except the 105-5 was originally a Scrap Mechanic creation, which is multiple years old at this point, but I recently redesigned it, and you get my point. The design that is here on the screen came first, and when I redesigned the 105-5, I took the 105-8 as an example, a canvas or something, I don't know. I don't know the words to express what I'm trying to say, but you get my point. It's basically a supersized 105-8, despite this being chronologically first in my designation system, which was actually purposefully created for Scrap Mechanic. I'll explain that a bit later, but anyway, moving on. Let's talk about the armor profile of this thing, because that's quite insane truth to be told. The hull is quite well armored, not gonna lie. The mid plate is 300 millimeters thick, but it's also angled, so practically it's a bit more than that. The upper plate is just no, and the lower plate is 100 millimeters thick at a decent angle, but I mean it's still just 100 millimeters of armor. The hull side is 150 millimeters thick everywhere, except if you remember these additional armor chunks, they add an extra 50 millimeters and further inwards extra 35 millimeters to a total of 235 millimeters on the hull. Plus, even on the weaker half of the hull, you have road wheels, which actually it's a recent addition that they have now armor profiles too. So yes, it's pretty damn well protected for a 120 tons tank, which I might add, this thing was supposed to be around 160 tons, but I don't know what kind of weight to add to it. It's pretty damn hard to see actually, so let me remove these. So as you can see, I even added some sort of weights here. Again, they are quite hard to see, but these are supposed to be simulating weights for the air filtration system, engine cooling system and whatever. I don't know, but these are actually just simply additional weights. But this thing still weighs only 120 tons, so yeah, I don't know how else to add weight. And the hull's rear is actually pretty damn acceptable at 80 millimeters thick, a bit more in some areas. Moving on to the turret, the gun mantlet is 150 millimeters thick with 100 millimeters of armor behind it, to a total of 250 millimeters at minimum, because the main gun mantlet chunk here is actually 300 millimeters thick, and of course the gun mantlet is angled, it's quite circular just like the plate behind it, so that 250 millimeters actually increases the further you go up and down. And the rest of the turret front, I mean, it's only just this part right here I'm talking about, is 250 millimeters thick, angled at 30 degrees. And why I'm saying that this part is the only one that I'm talking about is because, as you can see, this part right here is actually where the side and the turret front meet, and this is just impenetrable, so yeah, there is no armor value here, it's just a simple no as a value when you try to penetrate it. The sides are 200 millimeters thick, so really damn hard to penetrate, and even the rear is 150 millimeters. So overall this thing has a pretty damn insane armor profile, and as I said, it was supposed to weigh 160 tons at least, considering the fact that it's huge and well armored, and pretty much comparable to an E100 in most regards. The engine is a V16, which puts out 1000 horsepower, and it has a HP to ton ratio of 8.3, which is atrocious, truth to be told, but the transmission was geared for acceleration and turning rate in mind, so it accelerates to its 30 kilometers per hour top speed decently quickly, and it turns much better than what you would expect from something that looks like this and has the size of this. And the turret traverse rate is pretty damn unbearably atrocious at 10 degrees a second, so yeah, but that's to be expected. And also this small little rangefinder cupola can move independently. So yes, that's kinda cool, I guess. So yes, this is a heavily armored beast with a giant 205mm gun, and it's slow, it's big, it's undecorated because it's not supposed to be a real tank, and yeah, I guess that's it for the 105-5. It's just big, dumb, and full of fun. By fun, I mean large caliber, high explosive shells, which don't explode because APHE has not been a thing since the .2 alpha was introduced, but who cares? Armor piercing has always been the better shell in my opinion. Alright, before showing the next tank in line, let me quickly explain my naming system. So, as you might or might not already know, this is how my tanks' names look like. HGS stands for Herr Günther Zaknatzt, my other internet name besides the underscore player, and then a 3-digit number, and then 1 or 2-digit number after that. And if I want to be fancy, I can write -1 after it, and this whole means HGS Heavy Tank Design 5 version 1. So, my naming system is more of a categorization system actually, and it was specifically made for Scrap Mechanic because of the search function. If I want to search for a medium tank, I type in 104. Would you look at that, here are all my medium tanks and other types of tanks based on a medium tank chassis. How interesting. What about an MBT? I type in 108. But these were always classified separately from my HGST series. These were HGS MBTs. So I didn't really need to rename all of them in a completely different naming system. But yeah, if I want to search for a plane, I don't start the 3-digit number with a 1. I type in 201 and here are my fighters. So yeah, that is my naming system explained quite shortly. Anyway, moving on, let me introduce you to the HGS 106-5. So which one is it? Both. Both are 106-5s. So the story behind these is that I made this one first. You know that it's the older one because I didn't know at the time that you could make concrete tanks like this one right here, except this one was made out of what's it called, plastic, but whatever. At first this was also made out of concrete because plastic didn't exist back then, and then the survival update came out, and then concrete became a heavyweight material and I chose plastic instead. Whatever, who cares. So this thing is supposed to be a 2-man tank, but I never had friends to play Scrap Mechanic with. That's a lie. If you know this guy right here, you know that we played together at one point or another. But this one was supposed to be a 2-man tank, and I don't think it was even loaded. So let me load it myself. Huh. Interesting. I guess the explosive canister just... Oh, so that's where it... Yeah, this is the drawback of this old gun barrel design. And the new one actually uses a large canister. This thing right here. And it's a bit easier to reload. Hell yeah, it also has quite a bit of recoil. So yes, these two are both HGS 106-5s, except this is a redesign of a tank that's already a Scrap Mechanic tank, and even in Sprocket, this general tank idea had quite a lot of iterations, and I'm going to show you the latest one. which would look something along the lines of this. Wait, no, this is the previous iteration. Ah, much better. So, as you can see, I have changed basically everything about the previous design because, well, actually, to show you what I dislike about the previous design, I need to bring it up onto the screen, so here it is. So, recently, that means in the past couple months, I've been interested in character design and I have learned a few things about proportions. Now, this right here violates every law that exists to make characters look proportional. So, my problem with it is, first, the gun is mounted way too much forwards. In reality, since I used the gun of the 105-5 in the redesigned 106-5, I know that the gun takes up a certain amount of space and needs to be pushed back so the gun's recoil cylinders can fit inside the new gun mantlet. And since I didn't have that knowledge when I made this previous iteration, the gun just sticks out too much. And that is one point where I had a serious problem with this design. The next is the hull's proportions compared to the superstructure. Now, the superstructure looks like it's made for a completely different tank because of how it feels in proportions to the rest of the tank. So the hull feels a bit small because it quite literally is too small for what the fighting compartment is. And it looks short and it doesn't look that wide and it feels weak. I don't know how else to say it. And I mean, the rear is fine. I'm mainly talking about the front sideways perspective. And what else bothers me is the gun mantlet, which is the source of everything wrong with the design, in my opinion, because it's very circular, so it takes up space in every direction, basically, which means that the fighting compartment needs to be unnecessarily big to accommodate this kind of a bad design choice, which drowns out the space the hull would need to take up to be relatively proportional in comparison to the fighting compartment. I think that is what I am trying to say, at least. I hope I don't come across as someone who just speaks in an unintelligible way. Anyway, so I took what I disliked about this previous iteration and worked from the ground up to avoid said problems and came up with this design here. So let me remove this whole gun mantlet area to show you what I precisely mean. So the gun mantlet, at least its base, is not as big. It's actually quite decently small. And I achieved this size by making the base quite a bit wider than what it would normally be if I tried making it the previous way, if that makes sense. So now, since the gun elevation is not really a factor, it's quite limited anyway because of the gun's construction. I know how it can move, so it's quite literally physically incapable of moving any further than it can. Anyway, so since I know that the gun mantlet does not need to be tall here, I can just widen this base here and make the gun move left or right without making the whole gun mantlet as massive as on the previous iteration. And furthermore, the hull finally feels powerful and strong and in proportions with the superstructure. And that is the main improvement, design-wise at least. The guns are exactly the same, except this one is not pushed out that much because, as I said, I know where the gun can be limited in terms of movement, and it's just pushed back the necessary amount. The sides don't leave as much room for the fenders, so it's not as distracting of a design feature as on the previous iteration, and the sides are angled at 5 degrees, which isn't much, but it makes quite a lot of difference in my opinion. And as you can see, just like the ISU tanks, it has a bit of an angled front here on the sides, so yeah, it's just an aesthetic thing, I guess. Just looks better with it than without it. The rear basically stayed relatively the same. I had no problems with it, except I basically just improved on the general aesthetics, and yeah, I think this tank rear juke looks just fine. So yes, and as you can see, the fuel barrels, which were not present on the previous iterations, returned from Scrap Mechanic. And if you didn't remember, then yes, these fuel barrels were a design feature in both Scrap Mechanic AGS 106-5s, and the first AGS 106-5's paint scheme has also returned into Scrap Mechanic. No, Sprocket. I'm sorry, I've been recording this video for 2 hours now, and I am just messing up constantly, and yeah, it will be all edited out. What can I say? Anyway, moving on. As you can see, it's much more decorated than the previously seen super heavy tank, and that's because this was made with being a functioning prototype in mind. So unlike the previous one, this is technically a functioning prototype, except it doesn't function very well because of the 610 horsepower engine it has, and this thing weighs 90 tons. Yeah, the horsepower to ton ratio is undescribably bad, if that's even a word. I think it is, but it probably isn't. So yes, powerful gun. The armor profile, I almost forgot about it. Just slightly better than on the super heavy. The hull is alright, it's on par with the superstructure, which is quite thick. The sides are 150mm thick, and the rear, it's not as impressive. So it's a 90-ton assault howitzer with a thick front, decently well armored side, and who cares about the rear? The exact same 205mm gun with 340mm of penetration, and yeah, I guess that's it for the 106-5. There's nothing more to talk about. Maybe another mention should be made about the very sluggish mobility of it because of the quite weak engine it has, but yeah, I don't know what else to say. Let's move on to the last design. And the last design in this video is actually a main battle tank, and it would be the HGS 108-4. So my 4th main battle tank, and the idea behind this is T-55 with cage armor. I'm not kidding, that's the entire design idea behind it. And oh yeah, I had to place it on a lift because it glitches out quite badly, and Am I seeing this correctly? Is this seriously unstabilized? I know that it's unstabilized because the elevation and turret traverse bearings are made of two bearings actually, and are not free floating ones like on stabilized tanks. Oh my god, it is a disaster, what can I say? So this thing is made of concrete, so you know it's old. Actually, all of these tanks are quite old. They are all from before the survival update. Jesus Christ. Anyway, before I start feeling old, let's explain the design itself. So, at this point in time, I thought that canisters, when flying at tanks, might be caught on cage armor, and I wasn't the only one experimenting with this. There was a YouTuber called Oil Magma, and in his community at the time we experimented on different types of armors, and we used I-beam armor as well and some other stuff, I think, and we all came to the conclusion that this game is too buggy for anything to make a difference, so who cares? But yeah, this was meant as some sort of an experimentation. I mean, that's what I remember. I might be talking complete bullshit for all I know. It's been a long time ago. What can I say? This is what I remember. Might be wrong. So yes. For the scrap mechanic design, I actually went in a slightly different direction, and you'll see what I mean by that when we get there, which will be right around now. And no, this thing does not have a 205mm gun, it has a 155mm gun, thank you very much. But I did save the best for last, actually, because in my humble opinion, and quite biased opinion I might add, this is my second best tank design ever. And that's for a very obvious reason. So say hello to the one, the only, the myth, the legend, the HGS 108-4. So, the overall idea of having cage armor remained, but everything else went straight out of the window. It was defenestrated, if you will. And it resembles the T-72M2 Moderna. For a very obvious reason, it is my favorite tank, and I wanted to make a copy of it in Sprocket. And I had a decent opportunity to do that. So, as you can see, the cage armor encloses the entire tank, except on the rear, and additionally it has a chain armor, which you see something similar on the Merkava and the T90M. So yes, those two inspired the addition of this design feature. You could mount fuel barrels here, but I decided against that. And overall, I am extremely happy with how this thing turned out. And you might notice that the ERA on the turret is slightly asymmetrical, and that's because I, of course, wanted the theoretical driver to get out, and here is the drive. Alright, I forgot about it. So I sometimes cheat with the gunner's sight. This thing is supposed to be here, but if I place it here and hide it behind the ERA so you can see it, then that makes aiming quite a lot easier actually. So yeah, here's a small little life hack for all of you who want to have easier time aiming while not wanting to bother with the sight placement. Anyway, so yeah, here is the driver's hatch and here is the driver's optic, and I think I pretty much completely nailed the Chinese hull design. And I'm saying Chinese because it's actually a Chinese-inspired tank overall, which is quite hard to see under the T-72M2 Moderna exterior, but if I remove the additional stuff, we end up with something that is truly Chinese looking. And it's no secret that I am an enjoyer of Chinese military equipment, and I tried myself at making such a design, and I think I pretty much completely nailed it. The turret is angled slightly downwards, and just look at the turret. This is the 12th attempt at such turret cheeks. Please appreciate it. It took me a lot of trial and error to come up with a decent way to make it just the right angling and proportions and whatever. So yeah, I worked quite a lot on these turret cheeks. And overall, I really enjoyed the turret design. It's quite Chinese, except, you know, the real world Chinese tanks have a turret rear that tapers off towards the end, and this one stays straight, but I mean, it's still recognizably Chinese design. And also it doesn't even have a place for a coaxial machine gun, and in fact it does not even have a coaxial machine gun or a machine gun in general. It just has a large ass gun, which is a 155mm beast, and overall this thing just looks magnificent, what can I say. Back onto the regular version of the 108-4, as you can see, the autocannons are mounted in a similar way as they are mounted on the older prototype for the T-72 M2 Moderna, and that's why I also went with the exact same caliber, 20mm, and these things are quite destructive. Yeah, they have quite a decent rate of fire, and they can do serious damage against lightly armored targets. And look at this thing, it's just chef's kiss, perfection even. This is the dictionary description of perfect. You don't even have a description, it's just a picture of this. I love this. This is everything I needed in Sprocket. Now I can die in peace. Alright, jokes aside, I actually am really biased towards this design. As I said, the T-72 M2 Moderna is my favorite tank, and since this one resembles it, I'm going to like it no matter what. And this thing has quite a good armor profile for something that only weighs 50 tons. Yes, this thing, this whole package just weighs 50 tons. Again, it's just a cage armor that makes it look rather large, but in fact it's not at all a large tank. I mean, just parking next to the IS-3 lookalike thing right here, you can see that I'm not that much larger than it. Alright, I'm wider, but otherwise I'm comparable to this target tank. So yes, no coaxial machine guns, but instead I have this, which is quite a trade-off that's I think it's worth it. And yeah, I actually don't know what else to say. I just love this design. It's fast, it has a big gun, and has quite an aesthetic. So yes, I guess that's it for today. So yeah, tell me in the comments what you think of these large caliber designs, and especially this one right here. Yeah, I guess that's it for today.